have you and excited to help out with this information. Just so everyone knows, we're trying to get some, business building webinars out there for you guys. There was a recent article that talked about what the housing industry is going to look like in 2023. They're saying it's probably the slowest year we've had in the last 12 years. So this is a good opportunity to get some other information out there so we can start to diversify, plan B, right? Other things that are going to help us sustain. So thank you, Laura, so much for helping us build our businesses going forward. You go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much. So I'm excited to be with you today because I've been pitching this message long before COVID. This message I started talking about, which is diversification outside of loan signings, back in 2008. And for those who've been around long enough to remember what that was like, it was like this, but on steroids. So I had a full month in December of 2007 of loan signings. And I did a little bit of general stuff when it happened to come my way. And then in January, I went to zero. I had sold a previous business. I had been out of corporate world for quite a few years, and I didn't know what to do. How was I going to pay my mortgage? What was going to happen? And I didn't know at that time that that wasn't just a bad month or two. This went on the entire year of 2008. I did one loan signing in the entire year, and I was doing 40, 50 a month. So it was a time for me to step back and think, okay, if they need me for loan signings, I bet there's other things they need me for. And I went back through my journals and I looked at the other options, the other kinds of jobs that I got. And I was connected in the medical hospital arena because I had a facility for elderly for 4 years, which I just sold to go full time as a notary. And then this happened. So I've been telling people since that time, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Loan signings are great work, but always have other things so you have a more solid foundation if the business changes. And the business will. It's not if, it's will. It will. Real estate cycles up and down. We know it. We've seen the pattern. It goes on. And so it's not that I want to turn my back on it. I'll take assignments that come from that. But what I do want to do is make sure I have other things going on. And so this is called Riches Are in the Niches. And it's about either what are the different ideas. I want you to stir your creative juices today to think about all the possibilities. Some of them are just what people would call general work. It just happens to be an opportunity. They found you and it's kind of a one-off. Other ones are what I call specialty work. And that means there's a repetitive pattern. People need it over and over and over again in that particular environment or that particular specialty. And that's where I can really build business just like I did with loan signings. Now, let me see if I can get my computer's not allowing me to forward the, So Vanessa, this is one that you pulled up for me?
Yes. Do you want to swap out with yours or do you want to have?
Yeah, I do, because my computer won't let me forward these.
Sure.
Oh,
That's
okay.
fine.
Yes. Yeah. I just pulled up your presentation. Let me go to the next slide.
Yeah, so let me,
Can you share the screen, Vanessa? Did you share the screen with Laura?
Yes,
So
if
she
I can,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. She'll pair hers up then. Great. Technology, we love it and we hate it all at the same time, right?
Yeah. Well, what if I shared my screen?
Perfect.
Here, let me stop sharing mine.
Yeah, and let me share mine.
Sure.
And get it where I want it to be. I'm screen sharing. Okay, great. So let me get this moved over to, come on, that bar at the top is so huge. If I make this a little smaller, there we go. So slideshow, current slide. Okay. Now I've got it going on. Thank you very much. All right, so riches and the niches. I started thinking, who will pay for mobile service? Because remember, people know they can go to the bank, they can go to a shipping center and get a commodity called a notarization. I needed to identify people who were not in that position to be able to do that, or had documents that might not be facilitated at a bank, or maybe not even at a shipping center, or because both of those places are closed after 5 and on Sundays and on holidays. So I think that's what I started thinking about, is who would need this service and need mobile traveling service. So not everybody was going to be my customer. There are plenty of people that still go to the shipping center or still go to the bank. I needed to figure out who needed the service. So how do I identify niches? I'm going to talk about how I did that. And part of it was my journal and part of it was the yellow pages. I needed to look at what skills and knowledge did I have to offer. I had a past life before I became a notary. So that means I had skills and knowledge beyond notarization that I could add in to my service. And then finally, I want to talk to you about, well, can you sell it, right? You need to be able to convince those that this might be a service that suits their need. So first of all, is there a need for a mobile service? Yeah, because not everybody has access to go to get it. There's expertise beyond a simple document like loan signings are, estate planning services are. There are connecting services that go with my notary service that I can offer to extend my service to them. So I might also end up being a courier for those documents. I might be going to the recorder's office with those documents. There's other things. I might need to scan it for them because they don't have a scanner. So it's lots of other connecting services related to that. And then even beyond the scope of what I know. So for instance, or what I'm allowed. So for instance, I cannot prepare documents. I'm not a legal document assistant or a paralegal, but I have relationships with them. And even though they're notaries, they're in an office, so they're not traveling. So I send them to get the document prepared, but then they come back to me to provide the traveling service. And then there are certain requirements of documents that have extra requirements. And so being a traveling notary or mobile notary and making sure that I have more knowledge than just notarization may help them understand what else might be required. So how did I identify notary niches? And I just want to say, I am going to go through this kind of quickly, so I have room at the end to do Q&A. So write down your questions or throw them in the chat. And then when we're ready, I can respond to them. This is kind of a laundry list of documents that I know need notarization. So POAs and healthcare directives. In most states, healthcare directives are 1 notary or 2 witnesses. Some states are 2 witnesses and a notary. So it depends on what state you're in, but those are the 2 most common documents I notarize almost every single day. What makes them special is that they're usually in environments where people can't go get it done. So skilled nursing, hospitals, seniors who don't thrive anymore, and I need to go to assisted living. Last wills. Last wills typically are just 2 witnesses, not a notary. However, there are many last wills today that include an extra piece of information, an extra addendum, sometimes called a self-proving affidavit, sometimes called a attestation clause, sometimes called a testamentary affidavit. And this is an extra paragraph. After it's all said and done, the will maker signed it, the witnesses signed it, and this other paragraph, all 3 sign it, that basically says they were all together and they know it was the last will and he's over 18. And those 3 signatures are notarized. So I see more and more of that. And what that does is when your last will goes to probate court, they don't have to prove the witnesses were real people. They'll accept the notarization as proof. And then all kinds of affidavits, which are just fancy words for statements that have to be notarized. I do a lot of estate planning trust presentations, which means I work with attorneys who have a virtual office or want to go virtual, and they send me the trust. I drive out, I present all the documents. They've done everything with their client via Zoom. The first meeting, the presentation of the documents, all their questions, and then I come along and do the presentation, kind of like a loan signing. Only I'll tell you, people are better versed about their documents in this kind of environment than they are in the loan signings. So that's my sweet spot. That's my favorite type of assignment, because that whole package runs anywhere from $150 to $250. So it's in that same price range that you might get for loan signings. Other real estate documents. I have relationships with realtors, and that means sometimes they just have a deed or things that are done outside of a loan signing that need notarization, and they're the one that's paying for that. End of life documents. I do a lot of work with hospice, international adoptions, personal injury release of claim forms. Sometimes I work with the attorney up front. And that would be, there's a survey that says, what was your accident? What are your injuries? All of that. There's nothing notarized. I collect the signature and then I scan it back. Other times I'm working at the end of the claim, and that could be a year later, where they're doing a final release that says, yes, I accept the settlement and I'm not coming after you for any more. With the public directly, lots of pension renewals, spousal consents, verifications that they're still alive and should be getting that pension, withdrawals from their 401k. These are all things that the general public have happening every day. Vital records applications. I need a birth certificate, a certified copy. Well, there's an application for that, and it's typically notarized. Certifying continuing education for doctors and medical technicians. There's something that they need that certifies that they've taken it. Authorizations to release a vehicle. This happens for me in hospital settings where their car's in a tow yard after an accident and they need somebody to go get the belongings out of it or actually get the car out of it. Authentication of documents going out of the country. That's Apostille work that I do. And I do a lot of that as well. And authorization to travel for a minor, either domestically or out of the country more often, where one or both parents are not traveling. These are all documents every day. This is not once in a while. Then I identified non-notarization niches. And I said, well, maybe I want to be a wedding officiant. Now, there's only 4 states where it's a notarial act, but all 50 states, you can be a wedding officiant, which means you could be part of the planner part of it. You can actually conduct the ceremony if you go get a clergy status, like with Universal Life Church or one of those. Then you'd be allowed to do that. And that can be $300 to $500 to do one of those. Some people, you know, they just want it easy peasy, meet at their house and they're done. And that might be a lot less. But those who actually are going to have guests and want to do more, have a ceremony, you could be part of that. And what an exciting job to have. There's fingerprinting. Now, there's live scan and there's ink. Some states require that you're registered with the Secretary of State, some are not. In my state, you have to be registered with the Secretary of State to do live scan. So that's the fingerprinting submissions to DOJ, FBI for background screens. And that can be at the state level, and it could be for federal background checks. A process server or field inspection, permit runner. That's when you take the documents from the maybe construction company and you go stand in line at the recorder's office and get the permit, you know, stamped and get those fees paid for them and then bring things back to them. I already mentioned apostille. Now, sometimes documents are notarized and I need a commission, and sometimes they're not notarized first. For instance, vital records are not notarized. They just go with a cover sheet to the appropriate state, the state of origin, right? So sometimes it's non-notarization and sometimes it is. And then HOA, which is homeowners associations, inspector of elections. I do that in my state. I probably handle about, I have 30, 60, I have about 70 different HOAs that I take care of for their elections, for their CC&Rs, reviews, for judgments, acknowledgement of judgments when they're putting a lien on the property because they're not paying their dues. These are all different reasons why they might need a notary. So I've just given you a laundry list of a whole bunch of different ideas. Who did I target for what? So for the public, I looked at last wills and affidavits in particular. I also target them for powers of attorney and healthcare directives, whether they're home and they can't get out or because they're in a hospital. In a hospital environment, those are the documents. And, you know, it's unfortunate that people wait until they're going to have surgery, or they wait until their end of life. They wait until they've had an accident and now there's a problem, right? They wait until they've been diagnosed with something. And that's unfortunate because now they're under pressure to get it done. Probate attorneys and legal plan companies, they do estate planning and trust documents. Realtors, as real estate documents, obviously for them, but they may or may not be within a loan signing. They could be outside of that. Hospice, funerary homes, cemeteries, those are going to be like cremation approvals. That might be an advanced healthcare directive if it's not too far along and they can still sign. That might be an assignment after the fact when the family comes in for the deceased. And, you know, a funeral could be $10,000 and they say, okay, you're going to pay for that with a check. And they say, well, no, because he had funeral expense insurance, right? He had burial insurance. Okay, sign this document and that will send it to your insurance company and they'll pay us first. And then whatever's left over, they'll send to you. So it's called an assignment of benefits. Adoption agencies was both the public and adoption agencies directly, and attorneys who handle adoptions. And I really looked at international adoptions because that was the sweet spot. When I do international, and I have to say, I haven't done it in the last few years, I could have anywhere from 15 to 30 documents that I would have to notarize because they would have to certify that their tax return is good. So I'd have to go to the CPA to get their signature notarized. Then I'd have to go to their employer and get those documents notarized that, yes, they have employment and what they make. And then I might have to go to the sheriff's department where they got a citizenship background check. And I have to notarize the employee of the sheriff's department who created that background check. And then there's the family dossier with all kinds of different things that need to be notarized, anywhere from 15 to 20 different documents. And most times it's in duplicate and somewhere in triplicate. So you can see, and it went over a period of usually 3 to 6 months where I kept having to do these trips. So it was like over and over and over again. I love those appointments in particular. And then I already mentioned personal injury and family law as well, because I did prenups, postnups, divorce settlements, which are sometimes called marital settlement agreements, custodial agreements, visitation agreements. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things right there. And of course, again, with the public, their pensions. This is where my technology helped me. You know, when I'm looking at the public, I have to cast a really wide net on the internet. And so I'm going to use keywords for SEO so that when somebody puts in notary near me, I come up in my area. And so even now, more important is your Google My Profile. That is free, but there's a way to put in information to make it SEO, to make it more optimized. And there is a person who right now teaches that. His name is Jim Allen. He's out of Idaho. He's a notary there. And he teaches that, I guess, once or twice a month. If you look up Jim Allen Notary in Idaho, you'll find it. And I took the class myself, and I thought I had a pretty good, you know, I filled out all the questions. And I didn't realize there were deeper levels that I didn't fill out. I didn't realize how much photos played a role. So I had to really update mine to have a stronger pull on the public. Medical offices, the continuing education, Also, LLC documents for the doctors themselves. I just did an appointment this last week for an orthopedic clinic, 6 doctors and I had to travel there 3 different times. So it ended up being close to a $300 appointment. Fortunately, it was only 2 miles from where I live. So it was easy to get there over and over again. And then one of the doctors had 2 or 3 other documents that he needed notarized that weren't related to that. They were personal. So I had 3 different bills in the course of 3 days. Hospitals and jails. So sometimes it's an authorization to release a vehicle. Sometimes it's a permission to travel because the spouse is taking the kids somewhere. Sometimes it's a quit claim deed so that they can let go of the ownership of the house to the spouse so the house can sell it so they can fund their defense. Sometimes I'm sent there by criminal law attorneys to get documents notarized. There's lots of reasons why they need a notary to come in. Jails are more likely than prisons. Some of the prisons have inside notaries and they don't want outside notaries coming in, but I found luck with the local jails. International companies that do business internationally. That's how I do Apostille work. So I have clients who have a business relationship in foreign countries, and I do Apostille work with their corporate documents. And of course, I also do it for the public. I do a lot for Mexico and for the Philippines, where they have family property back in that country, and they have to have a special power of attorney to allow a family member to take care of whatever the deal is. It's to sell it, it's to refinance it, whatever it is that they're doing. The public authorization for that travel of minors, I've mentioned that already. And HOA inspectors would be who I target aren't the HOAs necessarily. It's really management companies who manage them. So I only have 4 management companies. I only have 4 clients, but I have 70 HOAs out of those 4 because each one might manage anywhere from 20 to 30 different associations. And some associations are self-managing, but not that many because there's so many rules and laws around doing it. So you might be thinking, great, all right, here's all these ideas. How do I approach that? And I have different approaches for different specialties. One of my approaches, and it works differently depending on that specialty, is an educational approach, which means for hospitals and assisted living and skilled nursing, I present an in-service, about a 15-minute in-service about notarization and what it is and what do they need to get something notarized. That's the idea, is because otherwise you end up going to a hospital and it's not always easy to get in. And then you find out they don't have the document, or they were told by hospital staff that I would help them fill out the document, even worse, right? Or they didn't have the right ID, or their document needs witnesses. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that can stop us in our tracks. And most hospitals don't allow staff to be witnesses. So I created a presentation around that. I also created a 1-page summary that's like 5 steps to successful notarization bedside in a hospital. And you know what? I decided to not brand it for you guys. And what I did is I put it on my website, coachmelora.com, on the resources page. And there's a hospital resource guide, which is the PowerPoint and the 1-page that you can brand, and you can change it to your state, modify it so it's not protected, and you can make it work for you, and you don't have to start from zero. So I just thought it was so important to at least have one way to know how to get in there. If you show up at a hospital and you leave your business card, it's going in the trash can. You need to give them something. You need them to understand that you want to partner with them. You're not just an outside vendor coming in. Now, that's going to happen. You're going to have people who found you on the internet. And so you're going to get a call directly from the client. And when that happens, then you have a chance to screen them and to ask them, do you have the right ID? Do you already have your document? Does your document need witnesses? Can you sign your name unassisted? Right? These are all the things you want to talk about. And to be clear about that, I use a tool called an intake form. And again, notaries are so innovative. I just can't believe it. She developed an intake form for that kind of appointment. And her name is Kim Flanagan. Her website is Notary Allies, plural, Notary Allies, IES.com. And she sells them by the pad or by the subscription. I use it because then I don't have to remember what are all the questions, because there's more questions to ask if your signer is not the one talking to you. If it's the adult child of the parent in the hospital, now you're going to, and do they speak English, right? Are they alert and aware? So now there's extra questions, and this form helped me consistently get all my information up front so that I don't go to a hospital and get a surprise. Uh-oh, somebody needs to be muted there. Vanessa, if we could mute that. Thank you. All right. Also, I spoke. So I went to service groups like Lions and Rotary and Seroptimus, the Elks Club, the VFW. I went to real estate networking groups, administrators networking groups. So I went to these places because you got to get in their orbit. You want to work with business owners, you got to get in their orbit. Where are they? Well, they're all part of these service groups. They are realtors. Where are they? They go to realty association meetings, right? So you want to see if you can get in there and attend. And just being there is great. And if you could actually present a little education, that would be great. I did for bail bonds, that was a specialty. I decided to test a mailer and I did postcards. And what I did is I introduced myself, but I didn't introduce myself with how great I am and all my qualifications. What I did is I talked about their pain points. You've got a customer, it's 11 p.m., your notary worked all day and is at home. You're not going to call that notary. So who are you going to call when your notary isn't available to go to the jail, or your notary is on vacation, or your notary is sick, or your notary already put in their 40 hours? Because they usually have notaries on site, but there are so many reasons why they need backup staff and they don't want to pay for that. So I could be the backup staff for the notary part. And if you're 24 hours, even better, because they're 24 hours. I'm not 24, but I do work Sundays and holidays when they're closed, but they have somebody answering the phone in case bail bond has to be posted. And I sent out to the 30 bail bond companies. And 30, I'm sorry, mute yourself, please. Sandy, if you could mute yourself. You're on twice. There we go. Okay, Sandy, you're on twice, so you're the one mute. And so there were about 3 that kept my card, put it on their cork board, you know, there with other things, so that they could call me every time they needed me. So I have 3 bail bond companies that call me over and over again when that need presents itself. Now I've talked about SEO. You can do that for yourself, or you can hire a company to do that for you, but it really does make a difference. And one of the things I did on my website is I didn't just put the right words in there, but I actually put education in my website. Like I listed all the different IDs that are appropriate for my state. I talked about when witnesses might be needed in their document and what to look for. I talked about what is a traveling notary. I talked about all the different things that, you know, what is an apostille? How does that work? Who's doing that? The Secretary of State is doing that. I'm facilitating it. So I put a lot of blogging and posts to help educate my signers. So my website isn't just conducting business, it's also an educational website. And I also put in there other information about what is a notary, what is a notarization. So these are all ways that my website gets called up more frequently than other people. I wrote editorials for local newspapers. I've published numerous articles on the NNA Bulletin. If any of you get the National Notary Bulletin, you might have seen my most recent one about how to handle blank spaces in documents. And so those come out. And of course, I'm a notary coach. I don't just do the work. So as a coach, not only am I targeting the public, but I have another website just for coaching. And my articles are for notaries, not for the public per se, but I can repurpose them onto my Do the Work website at your service, Mobile Notary, so that they can be utilized there for education for the public. I'm a pretty old school. I'm older notary. I'm 62. And, I talk about what my personal journey is. I use my Facebook page not to say, hey, I'm a notary, you should use my service. Instead, I use it to describe my personal journey, interesting clients I've met along the way, interesting notarizations I've had to perform. I talk about, interesting places where I needed to go. These are ways for you to keep top of mind that you are a notary without selling them, without being salesy. I've done presentations at churches and schools about notarization and what it is and why it's important and what kind of documents they might have experienced needing that. I volunteer for hospice as a travel notary for them. And so that's volunteer, but those people remember me and they call me later and say, oh, you helped grandma through hospice, but now I have documents I need notarized. I reached out and built relationships with LDAs and paralegals so that I could bring them business. That's why they wanted a relationship with me. I could bring them business, but if they couldn't do the notarization part because the person was in a hospital or the person couldn't travel there, the business came back to me. Also, sometimes they just got calls for notarizations that were either too complex for them and I'm more experienced and knowledgeable, or because the client, they prepared the documents, but they can't drive over there. So there was work going back and forth between us. And I love that. And not only did I do that with paralegals, but I went to shipping centers. And instead of seeing them as my competition, because, somebody who doesn't need mobile service, they should use a shipping center, right? I don't want to sell them something they don't need. So I went to the shipping centers. There are 2 of them. There's more than 2 in town, but there are 2 I targeted. And I built long-term relationships with them. And I said, look, when I called somebody and I screened them, one of the first things I asked them is, do you need traveling service or mobile service? Or are you available to go to an office? And when they say, oh, I can go to an office, I thought you were an office, I can say, well, I'm a mobile notary, so there's an extra fee for that. But if you can go to an office, I have 2 I can recommend. And then I send them and say, tell them Laura sent you. And so I've been sending probably a third of the calls I get from the public that don't need service from me to these 2 places. So it's a lot of business they end up getting. And so, there's that law of reciprocation. They feel that sense of, oh, when they get a call for a hospital, they can't go there. They're going to call me. Apostille, they don't know how to do that. They're going to call me. So I get a lot of business going back and forth. And I put on an annual event called Notary Symposium. Maybe you've heard of it. And all of my printing that I needed done and all of my shipping, I'm talking, I probably had to spend about $5,000 in that kind of service. I spent that money with them, not with any other place. I've interviewed businesses to find out, do they do business out of the country? Do they know what Apostille is? So that I proactively planted the seed. Wow, if you start doing that, now you know what it is when you see it on a document that you're required to do that. And then I was part of the chamber, and you'll hear a lot of people say, yeah, I joined the chamber, but that's not enough. You have to take action with the chamber. So what that means is get on a committee so you get to go meet business owners either one-on-one or in smaller groups. So I chose ribbon cutting. That means every time there's a new business, I was part of a group of about, a half a dozen people who went there for the picture and the ribbon cutting. And then we got to talk with the employees and with the owner or the manager about, their new business and what kind of customers they're looking for and all of that. And at the same time, introduce that, and I'm a notary. You might not ever know when you need something notarized. And you know what? I started getting calls because they had seen me, they had met me face to face, and they felt like it wasn't a stranger coming to look at their business documents. So if you're going to join some kind of association or organization, find out about the committees, find out how can I get one-on-one. I attended the mixers, but those could be 50, 60, 100 people. In that case, I'd have a different agenda. That agenda wasn't to hand out my business cards unless somebody asked for one. That agenda was just to meet interesting people, just to get to know what kind of businesses. Am I in the right orbit? Am I meeting the kind of people I want to meet? I want to meet attorneys because of trust. I want to meet family law attorneys because of adoptions and the other kinds of documents. What kinds of people am I meeting? And find out. I was very curious about their business and what they're looking for and who's their ideal client, right? Because I don't want to just, basically explode with me. What I want to do is be curious about them. And that's what makes them interested in me. And usually when that happens, they do ask for my business card. So I don't hand them out. I don't have them in my hand. I only give them when someone has expressed interest. And that usually happens when I have been curious and interested about them. The best question to ask is, how can I support you in your business? What could I do to help you? So I don't just offer notarization. I offer some technical skills because not all notarizations are the same. Some are more difficult than others. The other thing is I offer industry knowledge of documents, which means I have been trained by attorneys in the presentation of trust documents. I didn't just start going out there and saying, hey, I'm a loan signing agent, so I could do the same thing for you with your documents. I made sure I was knowledgeable about their industry as a whole, that I have seen the kinds of documents that are in a trust, that I would know how to present them. I personally have a class, 2.5 hours. It's called Laura Biewer Presents, and you would find that on notarycoach.com/ the letters LBP, L for Laura, B for Biewer, P is in Presents. And that website is Bill Soroka, and some of you may know him. We partner in business together a lot, and that's one of the things we partnered on. And then resourcefulness, because a lot of times they could be something that stops the signing and they don't know what to do. But I have ideas on what maybe they could do or who I could hook them up with to get to the next step. So being resourceful is more than having a resource, right? So I am resourceful. I have connections. I have connections for people who can prepare documents. I have connections with attorneys in all the different specialties, elder law, estate planning and probate, family law, and criminal law, right there, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I think that being able to connect people with what they need, even though they might not need a notary yet, is very helpful and plants that seed about not only am I notary, but I'm a connector. I'm a person that can help them. And I get a lot of calls where I don't know where to start. I know it's probably going to have to be notarized, but, and they start asking me questions. And so whatever I know that's general, I can share. I cannot state that this document is good for you in this circumstance. That's the unauthorized practice of law. But what I can do is say, sounds like you need somebody to prepare that document. I'm not authorized, but I have a friend who does that. Or it sounds like you might need a conversation with an attorney. I do have some locally if you'd like to reach out to one. So those are the kinds of resourcefulness. I'm not sure about this document. Let me see if I have somebody that's even more experienced than myself that could take a look at that and figure out what's really needed here. And within your technical skills, Make sure you know your notary law. Make sure that you know about the accommodations, because, you know, the person can't sign their name. Well, can you do signature mark by mark, or can you do proxy by proxy in your state? You should know those things. I don't have the right ID, or it's expired and I can't use it. Do you know about credible witnesses? Do you have that in your state? Is it 1? Is it 2? Do you have to know them? Make sure you know about those accommodation laws. Document knowledge. Have a good general understanding about the kinds of documents I've mentioned. Google them, right? Research them. If I'm presented a document I don't know about, I go find out about it. If you're looking to go into the legal field and you're looking at estate planning documents, well, I would take a class on understanding what is a trust, how does it work, who are the people who buy them, how do I get connected with that, what are the documents, all of that. Remember that there are other statutes, other laws that are not in your handbook that may impact you. And many times on Facebook, I'll see it's not in the handbook. I don't know what to do. So there's probate code in many states, and that's where you find the laws around powers of attorney and healthcare directives and what has to be included in to make the document legal, whether it has to be notarized or not. This is all there. There's recording law in your state that says what kind of notarization needs to go with a document that's being a real estate document that's being notarized. So that's how we know in some states, I think Georgia, it has to be signature witnessing. But in other states, most, it is an acknowledgement. And in some, there's an affidavit death of joint tenant that has to be a jurat. So how do I know these things? Because I went and researched the laws outside of notary law. Also, the health and safety codes. That's where you'd find out, does my state require an ombudsman to be present for a healthcare directive if I'm in a skilled facility? So these are things you need to know, so that when I get a call and they say, oh, I need a healthcare directive and it's at such and such a place, if it's a skilled facility, I can say right away, because I know in my state it's required. And I can tell them, but in Texas, it's not required. So it's not all 50 states, but a majority of them require it. And I can say, have you called the ombudsman first? Have you made that appointment first? They need to meet. They're called a special witness. They need to meet with that client first and verify they know what they're signing before I come and notarize it. Otherwise, I'm going to get there. And if I notarize it, it's not valid without that ombudsman. So these are some technical skills you want to think about. Resourcefulness, ask better questions, intuit the instructions. My best friend on documents is the instructions. I look, and that's where I might see, oh, it has to be in black ink. That's where I might see, oh, I need to have a photocopy of the ID go with this. Oh, that's where I might see that only this section is filled out if this is what you're doing, like a DMV document, right? So DMV might have multiple purposes in the same document, but section 3 is what they're doing. Well, I don't need section 1 filled out. I need section 3 filled out. I'm pretty good at translating legalese into English because I've studied these different aspects of law. And so there are words that I can substitute for. So let's just say they didn't know what execute a document means. Well, it means sign a document, or subscribe a document, signed a document. There's like 4 different words you can use for sign. Sign is the easiest one that everybody knows, but in our certificates and in documents, they're going to use legalese terms. So the more familiar you can become with them so that you can substitute those words when you talk about a document, the more comfortable they get and the more knowledgeable you sound. Finally, can I sell it? Well, I need to communicate the value I bring. So make sure you have strong writing skills, speaking or presenting skills, converting technical information to everyday language, understanding the importance of your notary skill itself, and willingness to share a solution even when that solution is not you, right? So many times I am sending people off to get something notarized, or even as a coach, they want me to help them with SEO. That's not my strong suit, but I know a guy, right? They want me to help them with their website. I can review it, but if they want more than that, I know a guy, right? I'm connected to many other people. they have questions about a journal and God, it's just cumbersome. They don't like how it works. I know 3 people that have developed notary journals. 2 are paper and they're more organized for multiple document signings. So the NNA has a great journal, but not for loan signings because it's onesies. Clyde Hempner, who has the Integrity Journal, is fabulous if you're in a state that requires paper for your traditional notarizations. I have another friend, Nick Coville, who developed the e-journal. I use that myself, and it's right on my phone. And so that e-journal is how I am able to walk through a trust assignment in about 35 minutes when it would have taken me over an hour. A loan signing appointment that would have taken me an hour now only takes me 30 minutes because I have a lot of things to journal, and he has developed it to collect everything, including a thumbprint. So, Kim Flanagan, the intake form. So I know a lot of people. I don't get any money. I get no affiliate marketing, no nothing. The only reason I refer people out is because I know they're providing something helpful for other notaries. So by being in that position, it tells people, I want to be helpful. My number 1 priority is to be helpful. If I can be helpful directly by being your solution, fabulous. Let me do that. And many times people will go get something done and then they come back to me for the notarization just because I did that. Or even because I walked through the scope of what they needed. And even though they could have gone to a notary office, they paid my fee because they felt I was so helpful to them. They didn't want to go to a notary office now. They wanted to use my service instead. The thing I want to point out about that is repeat business, lifetime customers. I would say about half of my business is repeat customers over and over and over again for different things, whether it's the public, businesses, HOAs, all of them. They use me year after year after year. It takes a lot of effort to find new customers. So I don't want to spend all my time trying to chase down new customers. I want to take care of them when they come into my orbit so that they'll stay with me on the long term. Now, what are some restrictions in these niches I talked about? Well, if you're in a state where they regulate travel fee, you're not going to make a lot of money doing that. So you want to look at the items where you can present and do more activities than just notarize a document. There might be a place like prisons where they have inside notaries, and so they don't need outside notaries coming in. Equipment. And now that I think about it, that's not, so when I go into a jail, and I'm not going there right now, I've been moving that work to other colleagues. I push a lot of my work to other colleagues so they have work. I can't take my cell phone in the jail when I go meet with the inmate. And that's where my journal is. And I can't have 2 journals at the same time. So those jobs I push to another colleague. But when she's not available, she sends it to me. And so I overcome restrictions by having a network of notaries who are not my competition. Those notaries are my collaborators, and we push work back and forth amongst us because I come from a place of there's plenty for everybody, right? I don't have to worry that I'll run out of work because I'm sending work to somebody else. So remember, some of your solutions are non-notary assignments if travel fee works for you in your state. And if it's non-notary, then there is no regulation. So Apostille work, it's not regulated by the state. You're just facilitating up front, so you can charge whatever you want, whatever the market will bear for that. Complementary work, translating services if you're bilingual. I already mentioned the Apostille. And keep your loan signings, whatever you can get, because that's a specialty. The secret to specialty work is one, be inquisitive. It's more than just the document. Take the time to connect to your caller. Invest in your knowledge and skills. Understand your job. Have higher level document skill. Understand what they need. It might not just be a notarization, and then be a resource for that. Always offer more than what's requested. If anything I talked about is something you want to talk more about with me, I do have some no charge coaching. One is every Saturday from 8 to 9, except this morning. I have laser coaching calls. They're group calls, limited to 12 people only at a time. And I have an hour that I devote to coaching notaries. That's free. Every Tuesday, if you're not already going to TNT, which is Tuesday Notary Titans, it's every Tuesday, 12 to 1 Pacific time. And you can ask your question. Bill Soroka and I co-host that every Tuesday. If you want to get the link, just go to notarycoach.com/TNT and leave us your email, and you'll get a link every Monday. And then I'm on Clubhouse, the Notary Successful Journey, every other Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I co-host that room with Matt Miller, Katrina Caldwell, Clyde Hempner, LaShawn Jenkins, and myself. There's 5 of us. And each time we have a different topic that we present, and we also take questions. We love questions. Now, I do have classes. So if you feel like, I don't know how strong I am on my notary skill, I have state-specific training, which means it doesn't matter what your state is, the training is on your statutes. And then I have a dozen documents, and we practice together, recognizing where it is, what it is, can you use it? Is it a notary act in your state? Not all states have the same notarial acts. After acknowledgements and jurats, it's kind of a free-for-all. State like Washington, I think, has 8 different notarial acts. There's other states that only have 2. I also, and right now, my next one coming up is Kentucky. I don't know if anybody from Kentucky's on the call, but that's next Wednesday. And if you missed a live call, because I do it live first, I have the replay. And it's on my website, coachmelora.com /real, REAL, find your state. I do a mock signing. Some people are newer to the business right now, and so they may not feel confident about the presentation part of being an NSA. And if that's the case, on my website, I have a live class via Zoom, and I work with documents. I show you how to present, what to do with documents you've never seen before. And people feel much more confident about doing that once they've been through it. And I've already mentioned the LBP, which is Laura Biewer Presents. That's on specialty work. There's about 11 different videos. Each video is an hour to 2.5 hours long, and you get all of them when you buy it. And it's not a subscription, it's just a one-time fee, and that's at notarycoach.com /LBP. And here's how you can find me. There's my email, Laura@CoachMeLaura. There's my website. There's my Facebook for Notary Symposium, because that's one of my Facebook pages. And then my other one is At Your Service Mobile Notary. And I think that was a fire hose, I am sure. But I'm going to stop sharing. Let me see, stop sharing. There we go. So that I can see everybody who's on the call. And Vanessa, if there were questions in the chat for me to answer, I still have time to do that.
Sure. Let me just scroll up here. It looks like
I know it was a lot.
we had a question from Julia. What is the good way to market to assisted living facilities and estate lawyers?
So building relationships is always my way. Bring something of value first to them before you ask for the work. Don't just leave your business card. I use education for the assisted living for one of their activities. I host an activity. I bring in donuts, whatever it is they'd like for them. And then either I speak, or sometimes I'll bring in an attorney, and I'm going to handle that on the attorney side, an estate planning attorney, because they may not have a trust, to talk about what is a trust and why would you even need one, and all of that. So it's an educational program as one of their activities. I found that was the best response. It doesn't mean that I'm getting jobs right at that moment. It means I'm planting the seeds, and I usually get called after they talk to their adult children about, do I have a power of attorney? Do I have a trust? Do I need something here? And it starts the conversation. when I approach an estate planning attorney, it's about how can I help you get more clients? How can I make you more efficient? How can I increase your income? I can do that by you not utilizing your front desk to do notarizations. Let them answer the calls, let them schedule appointments, let them do print your documents, assemble your books, those things, if they even have somebody. And let me take care of your client in the convenience and privacy of their own home. Also, because I'm a notary, I get asked all the time about documents that need to be prepared by an attorney or even a trust. I would love to be able to say, I partner with an attorney here in town and be able to send people your way. So whenever you can bring value, do that first before you just drop in and leave your business card. Okay.
We had another question. How do I get on the laser focus training?
Say that again.
How do they sign up for the laser focus training?
Oh, so go to my website, coachmelora.com, and it says book an appointment with Laura, and that is for Saturdays. And the next one is going to be the first Saturday of January. And that will be my next one. It's a full hour that you can come on to a Zoom call like this, and you can ask me your question. So it's
the next question was access to replay. So yes, I believe that we're going to be posting this on the NAIA
right
website. I don't know why I wanted to keep
for
saying
the
Facebook page.
yeah, for the replays,
replay.
state specific was my website,
Okay.
coachmelora.com/the word real, REAL.
And then we had fire hose of information for sure. Are there one or two or three non-LSA markets you would suggest targeting first?
Well, depending on, what skills you already have beyond loan signings. If you're in a state that doesn't regulate your travel, like North Carolina, no travel fee. Maryland, I think is $5. Connecticut, I think is mileage. Arizona is mileage. If you're in one of those states, I wouldn't bother with that. But if you're not, and you can charge what you want, hospitals are fabulous. So for instance, maybe I charge $35 to go to somebody's house for a document for home service. And then I get $15 for my notarization. That's a $50 appointment, right? But, oh no, I'm going to go to a hospital, not their home. I add $50 to that for access to a facility to account for the parking and the trying to get in through security and navigating the hospital. So now that $35 appointment went to $85 plus the $15 for the one document. That became a $100 appointment. So that's how that would work. And that's why I like that. One, people need the service. And two, it takes a little bit more. I'm probably going to spend an hour, but I'm still going to get compensated well for it. And I don't print anything. The other one that I think is the estate planning. If you can get yourself knowledgeable or you're already knowledgeable, think about reaching out to them. COVID generated a huge market for trusts. Most of them are backlogged with developing trust for people because once COVID and so many people died, so many people got so seriously ill, nobody had trust in place. So that is a big market for us now. So that would be the other one. And the other one, if you like wedding officiant, that's turning into a big thing as well. Remember, it's not just a notarial act for the 4 states, all 50 states. And there is a guy that teaches it called, what's his name? Grollo. Last name is Grollo. He's out of Canada. Never Boring Weddings. I think something like that is the book. And he has a free YouTube out. That's like an hour and a half. And it kind of steps you through what are the expectations? What would you do? So those are the ones that I love. And HOA is great if you're California, but if you're another state, you would have to check HOA law, right? Probably look for HOA specialty lawyers who specialize in HOAs. And usually they have educational pieces on their website to see if a notary is one of the options to facilitate an election. And if it is, there's some good money there.
So that was all the questions that we had typed out. I didn't know if anybody else had any questions to sneak in here real quick before we wrapped up.
Well, I want to give you a 5-step plan. Okay, it doesn't matter what the specialty is. I'm going to give you just a 5-step plan. I call it RIMSA, RIMSA. And And that acronym stands for R. Research, what are the opportunities? I gave you a whole bunch. Don't go after all of them. Go after the ones that are appropriate in your state. Go after the ones that you think you'd enjoy doing the work. Step 2 is I. Identify who's going to be that ideal client that you want to build relationships with and or get the work from. Step 3 is M. Make a plan. Well, I'm going to take a class. I'm going to develop an education program. I'm going to join the chamber. What are the steps in the plan to make this happen? 4, schedule it, because if it doesn't get on your calendar, it ain't happening. You have to have all those steps calendarized, not just the big finish point. That I'll be taking appointments 60 days from now or 30 days from now. You need to have all the steps laid out in your calendar. Research, book out an hour of time for research, right? Don't use your leftover time to do research. And the final one is action, and that is take the action on those days you scheduled your plan. So RIMSA, those are the 5 steps I use for every specialty I develop or decide I want to get into. And so that framework might help you in approaching any one of those. And of course, this was recorded, and I'm assuming you'll have the replay to this, and you'll see all my slides, and you can see those lists again.
Yeah, if
Anything-
anybody else doesn't have any questions. Give anybody a second here.
I so appreciate you guys
Yes,
inviting.
thank you so
and
much.
joining. And
Yes.
hope it's something you take away, something that can help you next.
All right, well, I think that's it. Thank you for all the great information. Hope everybody learned something today. Add something else to our repertoire.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
My pleasure. So long.
Bye.